Okay guys, welcome sa ating part 2 dito sa ating discussion ng juvenile delinquency, no? So again, we have here our topic. Patingin na lang dyan. So we're going to have at least 5 topic na naman for this video, no? And they are the following. We have here, we need to discuss about the causes of juvenile delinquency as well as the factors associated with juvenile delinquency. We are going to categorize also juvenile offenders. I mean, we are going to categorize juvenile, teka lang, juvenile, and then we're going to make a separate category for juvenile offenders. Then we're going to talk about the relationship of the so-called psychology to juvenile delinquency. Lastly, we're going to talk about the careers of a chronic juvenile. No? So this will be our topic for this session. No, I think we need to start. No, we start already. Okay. So first topic that we will be covering will basically talk about the causes of juvenile delinquency. Anyway, pag pinag-usapan natin ang causes for juvenile delinquency, there definitely we can cite two. No, we can just classify them roughly to two categories, and we have individualized factors and societal factors, no? Kasi lahat naman ng mga sinasite natin with regards to, like for example, biological, family and so on can be categorized into two, no, to summarize it. So we have discussed some of the factors already with regards to juvenile delinquency. I believe in our discussion on theories of crime causation, no, last semester, no? But then again, to have a refresher with regards to the following factors that we are talking about, that we have here, pag sinabi natin guys na individualized factors, these are yung kumbaga genetic siya, inborn. You're born with it, no? You are born with that predisposition, no? And we are talking about either that has something to do with your biology, no? Paano ka nabuo bilang isang tao with regards to your characteristic, physical traits and so on. Yun yung mga individualized, no? As well as behavioral, di ba? Kasi meron naman tayong halimbawa, I have aggressive personality, no? Parang ganun. If I have aggressive personality, that necessarily does not make me a juvenile delinquent, but rather this predisposition, itong factor na to could increase my potential to be involved into such criminal activity, di ba? Di ba, konting bagay lang nagagalit ka na agad, that's a problem. Not necessarily a juvenile delinquency, but it's a problem kasi you can be involved in a halimbawa ma-involve ko sa gulo dahil sa problema mo on your anger management, things like that. So that's individualized, no? For societal factors naman, these are more on the things that are transpiring within your environment, like for example within your family environment, ano, may criminal history ang family ninyo, like father or mother, your parents are involved in criminality, your brothers, your siblings are involved in criminality, that could influence you to turn into a delinquent also, as influenced by your immediate surrounding. That is just inside the family. How much more if you go outside? Let's say wala ka namang family history of criminality, no? But then paglabas mo, napasama ka sa mga tao na merong criminal history, no, na merong ginagawang criminal activities, you join gangs, no, things like that. So those are social or societal factors, no? So again, no, it could either be individualized, no, something like that is inherent to you since birth, no, or it could be societal factors, no. They can pwede rin silang mag coexist, no, and that increase more, no, that increase your tendency to be more inclined into the commission of juvenile delinquency, no. But then again, I'm not saying that this is alone the causes of juvenile delinquency, but we just categorize it that way. Perhaps there are many more, but still, magfo-fall pa rin sila either as individualized, no, or social, no. I made mention that juvenile delinquency for me is a social problem, no. However, if we're going to compare the impact of these things to the criminal career of a juvenile, which we will talk about later, no, mas marami tayong mga juvenile delinquent that became delinquent. Mas marami tayong juvenile that became delinquent because of social factors, no. Diba? Wala naman silang mga genetic predisposition, wala naman silang problema with regards to their behavior. But then, they were influenced, no? Na-influensyahan sila ng kaibigan nila, ng kamag-anak nila, kapamilya nila, parents nila, things like that. Social kasi yun, no? Or hindi naman kaya, okay naman yung kanyang pag-ugali, wala naman siyang behavioral problem. But then, because of poverty, dahil sa kahirapan, napilitan siya na mag-commit ng magnakaw, no? If he's a child, then definitely that's juvenile delinquency. Mang hold up, no? Mga ganun. So, karamihan ng juveniles natin ngayon are more likely na develop sila out of social or societal factors. Like mga nakikita natin sa ating society that contributes to the existence of juvenile delinquency. No? Konti lang sa kanila yung talagang merong genetic predisposition. No? For example, you have psychopathy. No? Psychopathy, yes. Let's say if you have psychopathy, doesn't necessarily na kailangan magkaroon ka ng social factors bago ka mag-commit ng crime. It could, no, stand alone. Stand alone siya. Pwedeng siya mismo, since it's a mental problem, it's a behavioral problem, without any trigger, it could play out. No? Pwedeng lumabas yung pag-uugali mo na yan. So, yan yung mga individualized. No? Konti lang, no, yung mga meron talagang ganun. And with regards to persistency with regards to criminal career, no, 'di ba? Kung gaano sila katagal. I think mas serious yung problem natin with regards to individualized factors. Kasi although it's only minority of the juveniles that we have today are influenced by some biological or behavioral factor, it is really hard to deal with this compared to social factors. Kasi imagine, pag societal factors lang yan, nag-commit lang siya, nagnanakaw lang siya kasi wala siyang pera. Easy, daw pwedeng magkaroon tayo ng remedy for this, like bigyan mo ng trabaho yung magulang niya, turuan mo siya ng livelihood, mga anything that could give him skill na pwede niyang pagkakitaan, then bigyan mo siya ng trabaho, bigyan mo siya ng puhunan, pwede nang magkaroon ng pwede nang mawala yung dahilan kung bakit siya nagko-commit ng delinquency. But for individualized factors such as if that's biological, no, talagang sakit na sa utak niya yan, talagang pag-uugali niya na yan, it's hard, no. So although individualized factors accounts for lesser cases of juvenile delinquency, but still that poses more problem to our government than those under social factors or those juvenile delinquent who became delinquent because of some social factors. There is just a comparison with that. Okay, now let's jump into our next topic, which is the factors associated with juvenile delinquency. So we have the risk factor na tinatawag, social risk factor, psychological, psychiatrical, and many other else. Pag sinabi kasi natin risk factors, guys, this put a certain child into a higher likelihood for him to turn into criminality. No? So for example, the existence of drugs within the area. No? Halimbawa, doon sa lugar na kung saan lumalaki yung isang bata, talamak ang bentahan ng drugs, talamak ang bentahan ng talamak ang krimen, talamak ang hold-upan. Ito nakikita ng bata na habang siya ay lumalaki. That would definitely influence his behavior. Pwede niyang ma-influence yung behavior ng batang yan habang lumalaki siya. That will change how he perceive those acts, kasi if that is done regularly, parang manonormalize yun sa kanyang isip. Isip niya, di lagi namang pag may nag-away, nagsusuntukan, so normal lang sa akin yung mga ganyan. Ngayon, kapag may kaaway ako, talagang mapupunta yan sa suntukan. Or di kaya na-normalize sa kanya na nakikita niya mga bata umiinom ng alak, naninigarilyo, nagdra-drugs, nagra-rugby, na-normalize yun, nakita niya araw-araw, became normal part of his life to witness those things. When no, he will be given a chance to try it. Susubukan niya without worrying na kumbaga baka pagalitan ako ng parent ko, baka palayasin ako, things like that. No, hindi na niya iisipin yun kasi it was normalized already. That's social risk factors. No? Things that are happening within his within his social environment could influence his behavior to become delinquent. No? We have psychological naman. Anyway, psychological, behavioral, no, like yung sinasabi natin kanina with regards to the causes of juvenile delinquency. We could relate that also here on the factors kasi pag pinag-uusapan natin psychological, then definitely that's behavioral. No? Pag pinag-uusapan natin psychiatric, no, that's more on mental. No? Like for example, meron siyang mental problem that causes him to engage into criminal activities like having an ADHD, for example, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That I'm not saying that having that thing would definitely make you a criminal, but it does increase your chance to become a juvenile delinquent. Pinapataas niya yung tendency mo na mag-turn into juvenile delinquent. So these are some of the many factors that we know that we could relate into the existence of juvenile delinquency, and all of this we call the risk factor. Remember, meron tayong tinatawag ni child at risk. Who is a child at risk? Child at risk refers to a person a child that is living in a situation that is risky for his development, for his development as a child. So itong mga to, yung mga sinasabi ko kanina, like for example, living in a society where they normalize the use of drugs, they normalize stealing, mga ganun. That's a risk factor. Or having living in a family that is already meron ng mga criminal record na nadadawit, mayroong criminal history, that put the child at risk. So with that, the government usually come up with a plan to intervene. Nagkakaroon sila ng intervention para nang sa ganun ay sagipin. Sagipin yung term. Sagipin yung mga bata sa kinalalagyan nila. Kasi, they could turn into juvenile delinquency if it was not addressed. It will not be addressed by the government. Okay? So those are some of the factors that we know with regards to with regards to juvenile delinquency, factors associated with juvenile delinquency, and many more, educational can be, but then yung mga ganyan kasi education, religion, that goes into the social risk factor. Okay? Of course, we have also the categories of juveniles. We need to categorize them. Why? This is, first we justify kung bakit kailangan nating i-categorize. All of these juveniles are really in a serious problem. Nandun sila sa seryosong kalagayan, and all of them definitely are considered as child at risk. So we need to categorize them so that we know how to deal with them. Kasi hindi naman sila pare-parehas. Pag sinabi mong child at risk, they could be put at risk in a different perspective. Like for example, they are the one who commits crime. Sila mismo yung nagko-commit ng crime. They are still child at risk, but then you will have a separate intervention with regards to those children. Para mas maipaliwanag ko, pag-usapan muna natin yung tatlong category. We have here the category of children or juveniles. Dependent or neglected child. Ito yung mga, kumbaga is, they are living on their own. They don't depend on the support of their parent anymore kasi nga pinabayaan na sila. Rather, they depend on the support of the government for their living. Like for example, they are in the custody of the DSWD, so they are dependent, or neglected child. Also, yung mga iniwan na talaga ng kanilang mga magulang, or kahit na sabihin natin kasama pa nila yung kanilang magulang, but their needs, like for example, food, clothing, etc., are not being provided. So they are neglected child. Yan, child at risk po yan. Once that you fall under that category, the government should make an intervention program already. We have also a status offender. Status offender are those juveniles who commit an act that is prohibited because of their status. I don't know, it is status offense na tinatawag are not necessarily a crime, but it only became a prohibited because the one who commits it is a juvenile, is a youth. No? Like for example, drinking liquor. Okay, pag-inom ng alak, we don't have any prohibition with regards to this. Syempre, ibang usapan pag liquor ban, ganun. So, ang pag-inom ng alak is not necessarily a crime, no? If ako, for example, I'm an adult already, I drink alcohol, I can drink whenever I want. No? Pwede akong uminom. Okay? However, if ang uminom ay isang juvenile, no, below 18 years old, then definitely, that would be prohibited. Bawal po yun, no? Bawal po. So, yung pag-inom ng alak became only prohibited because we are talking about minor. Now, we are talking about minor. But if they're no longer minor, then they can drink whatever they want, whenever they want, and whatever they want. No? So it became a crime, an offense, because of their status, like curfew. Di ba, we have curfew sa mga bata, like 10 p.m., bawal nang lumabas sa mga bata. Pero pag ikaw matanda na, kahit naman alas 12, alauna, pwede kang lumabas. So nagiging bawal lang siya if we're dealing with minor. So that is the nature of status offender or status offense. We have incorrigible juveniles naman. These are really the hardened CICL. Parang ganun. CICL. They are constantly committing crime over and over again. They have repeated criminal history. So incorrigible juveniles na yung tinatawag natin doon. Ngayon, you see, etong mga ito, whether you are a dependent, neglected child, or you are a status offender, incorrigible juveniles, the government should intervene. And we have, of course, the department that is tasked to make sure that the rights, that the well-being of the children are being protected. Yan yung ating Department of Social Welfare and Development. They take charge of those. Sa mga family issues, sa parenting and the like. So yun yung concern nila. Ngayon, when you fall under this category, either the three of them, the DSWD has the right, of course, to take you into their custody. Sila na mag-alaga sa iyo. Sila na ang bahala sa iyo. Like if that's for rehabilitation, if that's for punishment, or if that's for temporary shelter, the DSWD will take charge. But of course, kaya nga natin sila kinategorize kasi yung nature nila is very much different. And upon learning the individual or the unique features or nature of this type of or this category of juvenile, a separate intervention must be done. Hindi, ito yung hirap kasi pag halimbawa, itong batang ito was a victim of sexual harassment or rape and so on. Then, kinuha ng DSWD. Itong batang ito is convicted. CICL. Nag-commit siya ng crime, pero dahil hindi pa siya pwedeng makulong, kinuha ng DSWD. Tapos pagdating sa shelter, magkakasama sila. Do you see the problem? Nakikita niyo yung problema dito? Ito naman did not commit the crime, but then he was mixed up with other children, with other juveniles, that is under the custody of the DSWD, na magkakahalo sila. That's problematic. Or hindi naman kaya. Ito, curfew violator lang, hinuli ng police, dinala sa DSWD. Hinalo siya dun sa mga kabataan na mayroong criminal history. Is there a problem there? There is a problem there. Now, that's why we need to categorize juveniles so that we can set an individualized intervention among them and we could not just mix things up. Kasi hindi porket juvenile yan, pag samasamahin mo na yan lahat, magkakaiba sila ng circumstances, magkakaiba sila ng category. So dapat each category merong separate intervention dapat na ginagawa. That's the significance of categorizing the juveniles. Okay? Nakuha niyo yung point natin? Okay, so we have also categories of juvenile offenders. Well, this is in relation doon sa third category natin, the incorrigible offenders. Anyway, we have two types of juvenile offenders. Kanina yung classify natin ay juvenile only. Juvenile, not necessarily criminal, but juvenile. No, alam naman natin kung ano yung juvenile in the past lecture that we have. Today, in this slide, now we're going to talk about the classification or categories of juvenile offenders, and they are the following. So, status offender, we made mention of that already. No, they are they committed a violation of the law. No, but it's not necessarily a crime. Hindi siya crime. It's just prohibited because of their status, being a child. Dahil bata sila, kaya siya considered as violation. Like, truancy. Di ba yung naka-enroll ka sa school tapos nagka-cutting class ka, kaya yung mga kabataan na hinuhuli ng mga tipos, no? Yung mga ganun, parang ng police, ng barangay tanod dahil nag-cutting class, patambay-tambay. No, yun ay status offense. Status offense siya. Kapag ako, halimbawa, college na ako, I'm an adult, no? So, kahit hindi pasukan yung klase ko, patambay-tambay ako sa labas. Pag nakita ako ng barangay tanod, hindi niya ako huliin because I'm no longer a minor. That only applies if we're dealing with minors. So, status offender yan. No? For juvenile delinquents, ito na yung classification ng juvenile offenders wherein what they committed is really a crime. Regardless if who committed it. Like, whether it was committed by adult or a minor, it is still considered as crime. Like, for example, snatching, theft. Nandukot yung bata. No? Ang pandurukot, mapabata ka o matanda ka or adult ka, crime pa rin yan. So, juvenile delinquents ang tawag natin sa mga nagko-commit, sa mga juvenile na nagko-commit ng mga crime, no? Prohibited by law. For status offender, sila yung mga juvenile na kung saan nag-commit, naka-violate sila ng isang patakaran that is only applicable for minors. Okay? You get the distinction for that, no? Then, next we jump into the relationship of psychology and delinquency. Anyway, we have two things that we should talk about lang naman with regards to psychology. Well, you know naman what psychology, ano? For that, we're going to talk about personality and delinquency. Is there a correlation? There is. No? Di ba nga yung sinasabi ko kanina, yung individualized factors, like you're having a problem with regards to how you control your anger. No? Or di kaya may problema ka, like you have behavioral disorder such as kleptomania. Di ba yung irresistible urge to steal something. Yung kumbaga, parang meron kang urge na hindi mo mapigil yung sarili mong kumuha ng mga bagay kahit naman may halaga ito or wala, basta natipuhan mo, parang gusto mong kunin. So with this, no, we're establishing that there's really a relationship between what personality do you have, your characteristic, to what could you possibly do that would violate the law, like aggressiveness. No? If you're so aggressive, you could end up violating a law, di ba? Inasar ka lang konti ng kalaro mo, no? Sinuntok mo na siya. So that's a delinquency there, no? So personality and delinquency are much related, especially if those personality disorder that one juvenile possess can potentially make him a criminal or delinquent. So meron silang correlation. For intelligence naman, no, we always talk about this doon sa theories of crime causation, di ba? They are much related really, yung intelligence and juvenile delinquency, but not in a direct relationship. No? They're more like indirect. Like example natin, low IQ. I have a low IQ. No, mababang IQ ko, slow learner ako, pumasok ako sa school dahil lagi akong nasisiro, lagi akong napapatay, lagi akong pinapalo dahil hindi ako nakakasagot ng tama. I could end up being bullied, di ba? Parang mabubuli ako ng kaklase ko, even my teachers and other personalities. So that's the problem, no? Ngayon, with that experience, what could happen? I could end up dropping out from school, di ba? Why? Kasi I'm being bullied doon sa school, and even could be my teacher is also bullying me. So wala na. I'll be demoralized to continue studying. And if I do so, what will happen? No, pag nag-drop out na ako, ano gagawin ko? Patambay-tambay. No, and that's where the temptation will comes in. Like for example, You will be dahil nakatambay ka, wala kang ginagawa, wala kang pinagkakaabalahan, pwedeng mapabarkada ka, no? Andiyan magsisimula like palabas-labas kayo, no, mamaya painom-inom, pasugal-sugal. Those things could happen by just dropping out from school because I was being bullied because of my low IQ. Or hindi naman kaya, yes, could probably that I was not able to, ay hindi naman ako na-impluwensyahan ng barkadang bumarkada kahit nag-stop ako. But then, if I continue living that way na hindi ako nakapagtapos ng pag-aaral, I could end up in a less, yung opportunity would be lesser because hindi ako nakapagtapos, no? Pag naghanap na ako ng trabaho, pwedeng hindi ako makapasok ng matinong trabaho, no? And with that, all the disadvantage with regards to finances and economy will follow, no? So that's with regards to intelligence, no? Hindi ko naman sinasabing directly connected sila, but then it could be a factor. Pwede siyang maka-impluwensya sa isang tao na mag-turn into juvenile delinquency because of that, no? But again, we are not dismissing, of course, that yung low IQ lang yung pwedeng mag-commit ng crime. Pwede rin yung high IQ, like for example, yung mga upper world crime, yung mga estafa, yung mga crime na ginagamitan ng utak. But then, mas marami kasi, no, as far as the observation that they had conducted is concerned, mas marami talaga yung mga may criminal history, juvenile delinquency activity during their youthful days, no, na mga nandyan sa low IQ na yan, no? So those could be the correlation, no, that we can cite with regards to intelligence and delinquency. Okay, so lastly, not lastly, no, second to the last, now let's talk about careers of chronic delinquency. Now, go back to our discussion with regards to the classification of the factors or the causes of juvenile delinquency. Diba? We have individualized, then we have societal. As we have mentioned, I correlated this kanina. No? So, with regards to career of chronic delinquency, pag sinabi kasi natin chronic delinquency, no? Ito talaga yung mga incorrigible, sagad sa buto, no? Usually it can be identified through their repetitive record of being in conflict with the law. Diba, paulit-ulit silang na-involved into juvenile delinquency. Like, sabihin na natin sa loob ng isang buwan, tatlong beses na patawag sa barangay, no? Di kaya 3 beses na huli ng pulis, mga ganun. So, that is chronic delinquency right there. Talagang sagad sa buto na yung kumbaga yung pagiging delinquente ng batang yan. Now, let's look into their career. Kasi we have a notion here that those chronic delinquents will likely to pursue criminal career. Kumbaga, pag chronic delinquent ka, mas malaki yung chance mo na ikaw ay magtuloy-tuloy. Ituloy-tuloy mo yung delinquent act mo when you are already adult. Kumbaga, ngayon, panakaw-nakaw ka lang, pa-snatch ka, no? Pasungkit-sungkit ka ng mangga. Later on, you could end up committing more serious crime even if you are already an adult. That's the notion of this. No? But at some point, I tend to disagree with some. No? I tend to disagree. I don't think that becoming a chronic delinquent really is the predictor to the continuation of criminal career. No? Kasi there could be those individuals that very very active sila, na-involved sila in different criminal activities, juvenile delinquency, no? But later on in their life, no, hindi naman sila nagtuloy. I mean, hindi naman nagtuloy-tuloy yung kanilang mga pinaggagawa sa buhay nila, no? Ngayong bata siya, nangi-snatch, no, nagnanakaw, and things like that. Nung tumanda, nung nagkaedad na, nagtino naman. So, there are those instances na ganun yung nangyayari. So, it's not being chronic delinquent really that can really predict, no? That can really predict the whether or not one juvenile will pursue yung tinatawag nating criminal career, no? So, what then is the predictor. Ano yung pwedeng predictor? Una, let's categorize the reason why a certain juveniles turn into delinquency. Tignan mo, is it social factor or is it individualized factor? Kasi for me, I would likely think of those, yung mga may tendency na mag-pursue ng criminal careers are those juveniles who turn into delinquency because of some individualized factors. Nakuha? No? Parang kumbaga may sakit siya sa pag-iisip, may sakit sa pag-uugali, kaya siya nag-turn into delinquency. Sila yung talagang tumatagal. Okay? Sila yung nagtutuloy ang criminal career. Compared to the mga social factors, kasi madali lang silang madali lang mag-respond. Like, nagko-commit siya ng crime because poverty. So, let's say we would address the poverty issue already. Let's say na in his criminal activities, kumbaga, naging sustainable na siya, nagkaroon na siya ng pera, nagkaroon na siya ng puhunan. So, he could opt out to like, hindi na magtuloy sa pagiging hold-upper, sa pagiging magdanakaw. So, he could stop. No, he could stop there. Once that the social factors was the cause of his action was already removed. No? So, pwede yan. Ngayon, pero ibang usapan kasi pag individualized kasi talagang hindi mo naman ma-address by rehabilitation or treatment yung what really caused him to commit crime. No? So that's why. Ngayon, to support my claim with regards to this, kasi ang sinasabi natin as I've stated with regards to chronic delinquency, no? Yung mga chronic delinquent daw are more likely na magtuloy yung kanilang criminal activity as they grow up. But then we must remember that they are so-called the aging out phenomenon of criminal career, di ba? If you started early, no, you could retire earlier also, di ba? Parang let's say 7 years old, nag-start na akong mag-snatch, mag-hold up and so on. Well, you think I'm still that motivated or I'm still that ganun pa rin ako katapang, no? Pag umabot na ako ng let's say 20, 21, 22 or 30 or even 30, parang nandun pa rin ba yung yung pagiging kumbaga risk taker ko at that age? I don't think so, kasi when you start early, meron tayong tinatawag na burnout kasi pag paulit-ulit mong ginagawa yan, no, you are worried about your security, di ba? Palagi kang natatakot na baka makilala ka ng ninakawan mo, hinold up mo, no? O hindi naman kaya palagi kang natatakot kasi baka mahuli ka ng pulis or lagi kang hinahabol ng pulis. Di ba nakakapagod? So, pwedeng ma-burn out ka, pwedeng magkaroon ng decline on your urge to commit crime. So, you could retire earlier. Now, with that, you did not pursue already criminal career. Yes, you started earlier. But then, you could end up retiring earlier. No? Another thing is that survivability. Yeah. Of course, this matters most, no? How sure are you that of course when a child started snatching at the age of 7, he could survive until 20 or until 30? That's the issue, di ba? Are you sure that they could survive their entire lifespan doing that thing? Diba? You are risking your life every day by nag-snatch ka. Paano kung yung hold upin mo armado pala, di ba? So there's a potential that they could be stopped earlier in their life, no, by some unfortunate circumstances. So only those who commit crime because of some mental or behavioral disorder are the person I see that I can think that they could, no, continue their criminal career, no. Pero kung medyo mababaw yung dahilan niya kung bakit siya nagko-commit ng crime, like yun nga, poverty, out of poverty, mga ganun, that could die out immediately, no? Pwedeng mawala yun paunti-unti, no? Compared to doon sa talagang meron silang mental or psychological problems. So that's with regards to career of chronic delinquent. Well, there was a study actually that was na related dito. They believe that yung criminal career ng isang juvenile delinquent will peak. Kumbaga, ang pinaka-agresibo ang isang juvenile delinquent will be at the age of 15 to 17. Then, from that on, bababa na siya, magde-decline na siya. Of course naman, no? Well, we know for a fact that juvenile are defined as 18 years old, below 18 years old. Siya, wala nang juvenile delinquency na more than 18 or so. So isa yun sa factor. And the other thing is that it could be they could have encountered already a life-changing situation at that age, no? Kaya minsan sabi ko, may tama rin pala yung 9344 natin, wherein ang talagang iniipit dito na mga nagko-commit ng crime would be yung mga nandun sa age na 15 to 18. No? Kasi based on the curve of the criminal career for juveniles, talagang ang pinakamataas, no, ang pinakamaraming nagko-commit ng delinquent activities would be at the age of 15 to 17. No? But nevertheless, no, we should still do something about this because I still believe doon sa kasabihan nakasabihan ng isang professor ko, I'm not him, but I heard him saying this, that juveniles of today are criminals of tomorrow. So if we could be able to prevent stop or isolate or try to influence, try to revert back the juvenile delinquency of one person for him not to become a criminal in the future, then we should do our best to address it. Okay? So yun guys, that's the end of the part 2 of our lecture. See you on the part 3. Bye-bye.